Hello, hello, and welcome back to another interview as part of Phil Shomo Coaching, both on my video cast on YouTube and my new podcast, which is available on all the platforms. You know, one of the things I'm really passionate about is expanding our capacity for forever learning by not just focusing on people within our own individual sports, but also focusing and learning and gleaning really good information from people who are successful performing under pressure in all kinds of different fields and industries and careers. And today I had the privilege of interviewing my son, Caleb Shomo. And Caleb, as many of you know, Caleb has been very successful in the music industry. He started touring full-time when he was 15. By 16, he was traveling internationally as part of a very successful band named Attack Attack. And after a few years of Attack Attack, Caleb started his own band named Beartooth, and Beartooth has just had an incredible run, great opportunities. Caleb's performed in countries all over the world. Beartooth has headlined many shows in significant sized venues. Caleb's even performed in festivals to crowds as large as 30 or 40,000 people. As he says in this interview, one of the things that's interesting about Caleb is that he's an introvert. And as an introvert, Caleb has really had to learn how to adapt to these environments, these situations, these large crowds, and how to be a front man that can really bring energy and yet stay focused on what he's doing throughout a performance. And Caleb's learning over the 14 years, coming up on 14 years that he's been doing this kind of music. Caleb's learning on what it takes to deal with nerves and anxiety and big time pressure performances and big shows is really exciting for us to learn from. I'm so grateful he gave time today to talk and to do this interview. I think you'll get a lot out of this. Caleb loves not only music, but he really loves the game of golf, and he plays it as much as he possibly can. And I literally had to get him off the golf course to do this interview, and we kind of just started talking golf, and I just hit record. We kind of jumped into this, so we'll just start. We're literally talking about golf and some fun things that he's been able to accomplish recently. I think you'll get a lot out of this interview. Get ready to take some notes, because Caleb is going to lay down some really valuable tips and tools that have really helped him navigate pressure situations. I think you'll enjoy this interview a lot. So you had a highlight in your golfing life recently.
I did.
Yeah, you shot, and I'll qualify this, because after that he came back the next week and shot a 69 or 68 or something ridiculous.
Of course he did, yeah.
But
yeah.
Tell everybody what happened.
So we were out. I don't know what happened, but I was just feeling it and shot a 75. Luke did not have a great round, which is how I was able to best him. But yeah, was just playing really good golf, had some insane saves. So probably the best iron play I've ever had in a whole 18. Very consistent. And I would have shot 73 if I could have held it together, but I literally just got super nervous on the last two holes because I wasn't even paying attention to my score. I was just on fire, so I wasn't thinking about it. And then last two, I started kind of putting some math together, and I was like, man, I could get to par and ended up going bogey out of sheer terror. But still, 75, beat Luke for the first time. Wasn't bad. And I had a good round this morning as well. I went out. Yeah, we got 14 holes in. We went to one of the local municipals that was in some rough shape, but it was not ideal. I was 3 over on the front 9, played the tips, long course, and but then we just bailed after that. But yeah, it felt good.
Well, that's a real accomplishment. So Caleb I have two boys and two kids only, and Luke is about 3 years older than Caleb. Growing up, they were both very athletic, but Luke really took to golf and was in it deep, and we all struggled to beat Luke on the golf course. Caleb Caleb, from about the age of, man, I don't know, 10 or 11, music took over your life,
Oh yeah,
and and
definitely.
you were all in on that space, and golf was a little more secondary. And then, man, I don't know what, 5 years ago or so, you
Yeah,
started going deep.
probably. I just got the bug like probably 4 or 5 years ago. I really don't know why or what happened, but I just got obsessed. And yeah, got some lessons from a good buddy of mine. Started learning how to swing better, and yeah, started figuring it out a little bit.
So me and Caleb and Luke, that's the one big thing we love, like talking obsessively about. We make all of our wives crazy in this space because we don't know any end to the topic. So,
Absolutely.
I've already told everybody a little bit about your history, Caleb, and
Yeah.
I was actually thinking this the other day. You are, man, this is how old I'm getting. So you are like 27 and a half now, almost coming up
Yeah.
on,
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty
and
much exactly.
yeah, and you literally are about 50% of your life you've been in music pretty much as a profession, like a job.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow, that's crazy to think about. It literally is
Right?
coming up on 14 years. But yeah, I started. I mean, what first like real band that I was in? I was 14, and then when I was 15 is when we got signed and started touring, and
Yep.
I literally haven't stopped since.
Yep. And I've told you, and I've heard you repeat this on in interviews recently, that that first year that you signed, a lot of people wonder. You get asked this all the time about those days, and a lot of
Yeah.
people wonder what was wrong with your mom and dad. Like,
When I look back on it, I am blown away that you let me do that. But I'm very happy you did.
but what we didn't know at the time. So we were told, we talked to lots of people, including management people from California, and we had all these discussions. And Caleb's band was supposed to, be just get a slow start, and he would be out on the road for a few weeks, and maybe 5 or 6 weeks, and he would be home for 6 weeks, and we'd kind of do that cycle. And I told you, because I kept track of this,
Yeah.
you toured 45 weeks out of the first 52 weeks in the first year, because the band started going so well so fast.
It was crazy. That's so insane to think about. But when I look back, I mean, we really just didn't stop. We first tour, I think while we were on that tour or right before that tour, they're like, "Hey, we got another one that you're gonna have to jump off that tour early, and this
Yep.
other one's like 2 months, 2.5 months." And then on that tour, we got another one, and so on and so forth. And we just
Just
literally
kept
never
going.
stopped. Never stopped. Just
It
kept
really did. It really did keep going. And over all these years, man, you've done, man, thousands of interviews now. Like, you do interviews all the time.
quite a few.
But I think this one will be a little bit unique. I don't think you've been asked a whole ton of questions around pressure and nerves and performing under those
Yeah.
environments. And that's obviously the topic that I want to dive into a little bit today. I've started saying this. I kind of picked pieces of this up from other people, so I'll give credit to somebody else. I don't even know where I got it really, but I've started saying that success leaves a trail of breadcrumbs that mark the path if we will look for them. And you've
Very
been
fair.
successful in performing in a certain field, but you're a human being just facing these certain sets of circumstances and opportunities and pressures, just
Mhm.
like the athletes that I work with are just human beings facing certain pressures and dynamics. And so I think the conversation that you and I have today can not only be interesting because a ton of the people I work with athletically are fans of your music and talk to me about your music, but I also think it can be very helpful to them in translating these topics. So let's just go back. I mean, when you were 14, 15, and then you guys started hitting the road and touring, and then things got pretty crazy. And I think before, man, you did your first Warp tour right after you had turned 16,
Yep.
and things really like exploded. I remember being at that very first Warp tour, and the crowds were overwhelming the capacity for the stages they had you guys playing on.
Yeah.
What do
That
you
was insane.
remember? Yeah, it was crazy. What do you remember about nerves and anxiety and like just like walking into certain environments where, Holy smokes, there's eyeballs on you on the stage that you had like never experienced before. What do you remember about those early days?
I mean, the early days were definitely a lot easier because I wasn't in the spotlight. I was
Yeah.
just like, I played keyboard when I first started. I was off on the side of the stage. I mean, it was really only for like 1 year, but I'll still never forget the nerves and the pressure. I mean, starting when I first ever stood up in front of people, I was just terrified. I was not the confident. I mean, I've always been very introverted,
Yeah.
very not comfortable in front of big groups or whatever growing up. And so, I mean, translate that to we do a few tours and we're in tiny little, vet halls and bars and 200 capacity, 300 capacity. We're opening the show. We're doing like 25 minutes, uh, super low pressure. And I wasn't singing or had to talk to anybody. I was just kind of off on the side and did my thing. So take that to then Warp Tour, where I mean, it was just like immediate. It was so quick and so crazy. We were playing in front of, I mean, thousands and thousands, thousands of people every single day. And that, it was definitely just like a different type of nerves mixed with excitement.
Hmm.
And I think having the people around me, like everybody in the band, just, we never showed nerves to each other. That was just something we never ever talked about. It was always just excitement. We always just talked about how great this is going to be, how cool this
Cool.
is. There was never anything really negative or nervy in our discussion. And I think for me, that really helped me out to kind of like just tune that out and get in a zone. And also on that Warp Tour, I mean, it was just show after show after show. So you really do get in a groove. And I think that really helped me kind of like learn how to control nerves in the early days.
Mm.
And then, it obviously changed when I started singing, but for the early days, it was more of this just pure excitement to be
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
It felt like there was no pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, there was, but back then I wasn't paying any attention to it. And it was just like, I'm literally a child and I'm just having a good time and whatever. I didn't think it was like, this is my life. It was just kind of a period. So I guess I got very lucky in the sense that I didn't have a bunch riding on it mentally. It was more just, we're here to have a good time. And that's all that matters is, are we having fun? Period.
Well, and it sure came across in those days like you guys were just having fun without a care in the world, right? That was
Yeah,
sort of your vibe.
absolutely. Yes. In the early days, that was definitely how it was.
You know, and Caleb's talked a lot, I mean, very openly about many, many things related to the early part of his career. Shout out to Shane, Told, I think is the one you
Yes.
did. Yeah, the lead singer syndrome. Am I right about that?
Great
That was,
podcast. Yeah.
yeah, that was the podcast. Go find that if you want to hear Caleb go into
Yeah. We talk
s-
about a lot in that
yeah,
podcast.
super deep stuff. And you and I have talked about, I mean, over all the years, we've talked about just about every aspect of the music industry we possibly can, and it's been a lot of fun. But even some of this stuff, I've never asked you questions about. So when
Yeah.
you think, yeah, when you think back about maybe after you became, especially when you became the front man or early days of you being the front man with the microphone, what did nerves actually do to you? Like when you would, I'm sure like sometimes you would handle it better than others.
Yeah.
And what do you remember about the effect of really being nervous and how would that play itself out in an actual performance in those
Yeah.
days?
Yeah. I mean, I will never forget the first show that I was the singer. Um, we didn't announce it, so nobody knew. Uh, we, I mean, we were so unprofessional. It was crazy. But yeah, we were just kids. Nobody knew what was going on, but it was like a decently sized tour. We were playing in upstate New York at this place that probably holds around 1,000 people. I'd guess there was anywhere between 500 to 800 people at the show, and we're
Yeah.
headlining.
Yeah, big show.
And uh, I just walk out there and start singing, and we get through the first song, and I'm fine. And the first time I had to talk to the crowd, I was like I just kind of froze up. I literally was like dead silence, and I was just like, "How are we doing?" Or so, I didn't even know what to say, and that literally, like, the nerves had a physical effect on, like
Yeah.
a full blown changed the way my brain was working in the chemistry of it and my body. I mean, I was so hyped on adrenaline, and then immediately when I had to talk, it was just like shut down. It
Yeah.
was like frozen, like didn't know what to do, didn't have confidence. It was like this completely overwhelming 15, 20 seconds. And
Yeah.
it was very bizarre. And that,
Yeah.
yeah, that was I'll definitely never forget that. My like first, that was probably my first experience with like serious nerves trying to perform and do my job.
Which is all, that actually I want to go there a little bit more because you're opening up something that's making me think a little bit. What you do, and this relates a lot to athletes, but in different ways. I mean, some
Hmm.
sports this would be very direct, and in some sports like golf or something this would be a little less direct. But you had to figure out on a self-control level how to be hyped up and let the adrenaline like create a performance kind of energy, right?
Oh yeah.
But then you also had to learn how to manage that because just going in 1,000 miles an hour, like from the first note for 45 minute to an hour, now maybe an hour and a half set or something, like
Yeah.
that's not even possible, and that actually is going to ruin the performance if you do it that way. So
Oh yeah.
talk a little bit, and again, you and I have we've never talked about this. How have you learned to both allow the energy that's pulsating through your body to become an asset to you and not like just a negative to you on stage?
I mean, honestly, I think that's just repetition. It is just, it is consistency. It is the fact that I have just done it time and time and time again. And honestly, it's something that I don't think I've even really honed in
Mhm.
until probably the last 2 years.
Really?
Honestly, I truly believe that I mean, in the early days, there was a period where I was still so fresh to it, and we just kept growing at such a rapid rate, and the shows kept growing. So every show was that crazy adrenaline, just outrageous adrenaline. And I would go out and just completely blow myself out in the first song, two
Yeah.
songs. And there was actually, it got to a period where we went and toured Australia, and we were headlining, and it was a big tour, and I completely blew my voice out. I mean, like completely, literally to the point where I had to like relearn how to sing because I realized I was just like, there's no way I can do this consistently and put on a good show
Yeah.
if I don't learn how to control this. So I
Wow.
almost was kind of forced into it by
Yeah.
injury. And but after that, I mean, it's just like this, it's really just a zone. That's the best way I can put it,
Mm.
is you get to this point where when you start feeling the adrenaline, it doesn't make you shaky and nervy. The adrenaline is like gas. It's like the
Yeah.
fuel.
Yeah.
And I basically have to control that and ease off, like use it just enough, but really be easing off of it for the
Ooh.
first few songs until I
Yeah.
kind of like get more into the zone and like get more in the groove, I guess. So yeah, that, I mean, really just took so much repetition and
Mm.
so much time, and really just looking at the bigger picture, which is okay, we are going to have a lot of really difficult songs for me to get through, but are our biggest songs at the end of the set. And if I come out swinging and don't pace this right, by the end of the show, it's just going to be awful.
Yeah.
There's going to be nothing left in the tank, and yeah. So I mean, just learning how to control it, repetition, repetition, repetition,
Yeah.
and just kind of like being able to know what those feelings and those triggers are, So a big thing I will say that I still get nervous like once a tour, and that is if the first show, if we haven't played a show for a long time or we're playing like a one-off festival, I do still get nervous, and that's when I really have to focus on it. Because when I'm just grooving and I'm just show after show after show, you're locked and it really feels natural. But
Yep.
it's getting back into that space of comfort is really difficult. And yeah, I still get myself into trouble sometimes at shows when we haven't played for a while, my voice isn't really broken in, and I just send it for like the first two songs, and yeah, it's
I love
tough.
how I love how you talk about it though, and this actually is very helpful to athletes and the athletes that I work with. You talk about those emotional feelings, like those things pulsating through your body. You think about it as fuel. And what's interesting, I was saying this in another interview recently, scientists actually tell us that what's going on in our body chemical wise is the adrenaline pressure, nerves, and anxiety, and excitement and positive energy all feels the same in our body. It's how we interpret it, the perspective we put on it. And some people, and this I think would probably relate more to your early days, some people interpret the feeling as something's wrong with me. I shouldn't feel this way. If I was confident, I wouldn't be like this.
Right.
And other people feel the exact same feelings, but to them it means opportunity, and this is great. I can't wait to do this. And you're describing the same thing as channeling the fuel to like release it at the helpful moments. In athletics, I talk about that channeling the focus
Yep.
into certain moments and then pulling back out of it and letting it go in other moments. Very similar to what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%.
So, and you know this, I use for my business, I use this tagline, adversity to advantage. And the idea of that is that obstacles, maybe even failure, things that are hard or difficult, things that don't go our way, things either that we contribute to or that happen around us, that these can actually either be things we push away from, we run away from, or they can actually create new opportunities for us to learn and develop our skill. And you talked a little bit about your vocal challenge, adversity, and losing your voice in Australia. And I've actually told people, I get asked a good bit, how does he scream and sing and not lose his voice all the time? And I
Yeah.
try to explain to him about all the training and all the technique and all the things that you've learned. But is there another example maybe where something really hard that you've gone through, and you and I know a lot of the hard times as well as what everybody else sees, a lot of the good success stuff, and we've seen a
Yeah.
lot of ups and downs. But when you think of something hard that now, as you reflect back on it, it has really become part of what has made you successful.
Yeah.
Where would your mind go in that space of adversity or difficult hurdles, failure, however you would define the hard things that now you learned from them and they've made you much more confident, much more successful?
Hmm. Well, oddly enough, I have another kind of story that's incredibly similar to the first one I was telling about losing my voice in Australia,
Yeah.
because it is again about losing my voice in Australia, but a completely different scenario and
Okay.
infinitely more pressure,
Okay.
way more important. So, the first time I lost my voice, when I was like 17, it was in the old band, and whatever. We weren't, we were getting big, but it wasn't the end of the world. But when we went back last year, I believe, we had never headlined in Australia, and Beartooth has been touring and headlining since 2014, late 2013, something like that. And so we go over there. We have four shows. They all sold out. Well, the three like big ones sold out of the four, and they're four in a row. And we knew we had to. I mean, we had to bring it. Like we turned down. We got an offer that year to do a festival for a very outrageous amount of compensation that we turned down because we were like, no, we need to headline and like put on our full show, like the hour and
Yeah.
a half with all the, the whole bit. So we get to Sydney, which is the biggest show. I believe it was like 1,200 and change people. And I literally could not speak. I mean, completely had nothing. And, before when I would lose my voice, it'd be a bummer, but I'd always just kind of like, whatever, shake it off. I completely panicked. I literally shut down. When we were doing our sound check, I could barely get through a note. I mean, I had like a panic attack. I was like crying and freaking out in the dressing room. So nervous. We had to do a meet and greet thing where it's basically like there's 100 people that we have to shake hands, take pictures, talk to. That was in like an hour. Um, I just completely didn't know what to do. Just absolutely shut down, and it was terrifying. And that was something that was honestly like a new thing for me. I'm usually good with handling my nerves and just being like, whatever, if
Yeah.
things go bad, things go bad. But I'm like, no, things literally cannot go bad right now. We have one shot to nail this show and cement that this is a place that people want to come back and see us. And I don't even remember how I got up there. I mean, basically the entire day I was just a mess. We did the like meet and greet thing. I went back to my hotel room and just sat in like a steam shower and was just trying to do vocal warm-ups. I was taking medicine. I was doing all of this stuff, and nothing was working. And we get to showtime. Van came and picked me up, I think about 10 minutes before we came on, and I've been warming up, trying to get anything back all day. Still had no voice. And when I stepped out, I had the adrenaline affected me in a different way. It wasn't like the adrenaline, like, okay, I can channel this. It was just nerves and do or die. It was like this
Wow.
complete, I have no idea how I'm going to get through this, but we literally have to. And if I go out there and just completely bomb, then I go out there and completely bomb. But let's hope that doesn't happen. So went out and basically just said to the crowd, I was like, listen, I could barely speak this morning, but we're not going to cancel this show. So I'm just going to need some help. And it was one of the best shows of my entire career.
Really?
I was terrible. Don't get me wrong. My voice was awful. And we got through it. But there was something about the adrenaline that right when I walked out there and got into the environment, I just tried to remember everything that I've trained myself so many times over, which is like adrenaline can do some magical stuff
Mm.
when you really are in need. And it was just flowing. And yeah, I just got through the set and my voice kind of halfway came back about 4 or 5 songs in. And it was literally one of the craziest shows we've ever played in our career.
What a great
And
story.
so,
Wow.
I mean, for me, that was just one of those things that has been so pivotal for me as a singer is
Mm.
that if I could get through that show and we absolutely blew it out of the park and it was like a great time for everybody there, regardless of the fact that I was injured, basically. Uh, if I can get through that, I'm getting through any show. It doesn't matter. So, it just taught me that no matter how terrifying and impossible that it seems for me to be able to go out and do what I need to do, when I really think and focus and just rely on the fact that I've done this so many times, it is so ingrained in me that I'm going to be fine. Like there will be a way to get it done. And it may not be the best I've ever done performance wise, but that doesn't mean it's going to be not the best show we've ever had. There's a
Wow.
lot more factors than
Yep.
just me having a decent voice that day. There was so much more to it. And yeah, so I think back to that show every time I am remotely nervous about my voice. I'm just like, it doesn't matter. If I got through that, I'm good. We'll find a
Wow.
way.
What a great story and what a just a fantastic example. I want to, I mean, again, this kind of relates to what you were just saying, but to even break it down even more. So part of what I talk with athletes about and trying to help them develop is in the arena of confidence. And you just told a great story of a piece of building confidence is succeeding through something that you never even imagined that you could, which then changes the way you perceive it later.
Yep.
I also talk about confidence in terms of preparation before you perform, execution during your performance, and then evaluation afterwards. So, and I know we could go a long time on each of those, but
Yeah.
I just want you to give us kind of one thing that comes to mind when I ask you this question. So let's just start with before. What's one thing that you do, not like on a, superstitious kind of level, but more on a before a show, and it could even be leading up to a tour, because for you guys there's whole days and even a week of preparation stuff.
Yeah.
What role does preparation before performance play for you, and what do you need to do for your confidence to be really ready on either day one or first note of a show?
Yeah. I think it's just getting back into my habits. I have very specific habits that when I'm on tour, I need to be doing to keep myself in the zone and to just be prepared.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, for example, right now we're in obviously a ton of downtime. And I mean, we do not have many shows that are going to be happening anytime soon. So,
Yeah.
when they do come, probably 2 or 3 weeks before, I'll start just trying to kind of like beat my voice up a little bit and just remember,
Mm.
like, get those muscles trained. Because if I just go in cold and try and go into an hour and a half, I'll probably get through the first night. Second night is going to be rough. And then it's just going to be a downhill battle until we have a day off or 2 days off that I can really like relax and try and get my voice back. But so probably 2 or 3 weeks before, I'll start getting more into my touring habits, where I am trying to constantly drink water, like a simple thing like that, getting exercise, and just using my voice a lot. So I'll come
That's
down
cool.
here into my little studio room and just throw on like various recordings of our live shows or whatever, put headphones on and try and like just get my mind ripped back into
Yeah.
that environment and just sing and just do the show and just
Yeah.
do it over and over and over, try and wear myself out, and then just kind of keep pushing it as far as I can. And then about 2 or 3 days before, I'll pull back. I'll like
Okay.
hit it insanely hard and just completely wear myself out. And then a few days before, I'll back off and give myself a little bit of recoup. And then usually, if I'm being good about it, then by show one, I'm just right in the zone and I don't even have to think about it.
Wow. I love that. I really love what I love, and I think what the athletes that can pick up on that watch this is just how precise you are. You've done it. Obviously, you've been doing this for 13 years now or something,
Yeah.
but you've learned these rhythms that work for you, that put you in the very, very best space.
Oh, yeah.
So I love that preparation piece, and we could go a lot further with that because I know you got a lot of details in how you prepare. Let's think about during a show, execution during a show. What a lot of people don't understand, but I know really well because all these years, you do a similar set night on a tour. If you're
Yeah.
headlining a big tour, you what 30 show? I mean, what? I mean, you've done really long tours.
Yeah. I mean, so our last few like big headline tours, we were doing of like this record cycle that we did. We were doing an hour and a half, hour and 20 to an hour and a half each
Yep.
show, about 15 to 17 songs. And uh, first tour was 46 shows
46
over
shows. Okay.
with preparation for the crew, with rehearsals, with everything. It was like 68 to 70 working days, something
Okay.
like that. So a lot of
Yeah.
work. Then, but yeah, anywhere from 30 to 55
Right.
days
So
probably.
So what what I know because of just having been around that world with you for so long is that each night is unique because places are different and fans are different and venues are different and all that. But there's also a repetition to the set, to the songs, to the way it goes down. So when you think about executing your best performance in a show, it's not that crazy for your mind to drift. Like you can go into autopilot eventually because
Oh
you
yeah,
just do it night after night.
absolutely.
What's at least one, and there might be several of these, but what's a habit or a ritual or a routine, something you do during a show that has become for you just a regular habit, and it's maybe a way for you to stay present, to stay engaged in the actual performance? What helps you stay with it as opposed to just mailing it in and going through the motions?
Right. I think it's almost in a way kind of like certain times I think you need to find a middle ground almost. Where if I'm so focused to the point where I'm not just trusting the fact that my body has done this
Yep.
exact
Yep.
show
Yep.
so many times, then I'll get in my head and
Yeah.
I'll start missing notes. I'll get
Yep.
too zoned in on perfection and I won't
Yeah,
let
it's
it
what
flow.
we call overthinking it in sports,
Yeah,
right? And you know golf
right.
enough to know that doesn't work in golf.
Exactly. So like a big thing for me is honestly like I control kind of the intensity of how I'm trying to go about things with the volume. So we have like in-ear monitors, so we aren't all completely deaf because we play insanely loud.
Yeah.
And basically, I control how loud and how quiet my mix is in my ears. So like a typical show, first song, I'll be jamming it pretty hard, and I'll like give it one song where I just kind of really send it, and then I kill it, and I completely turn it off, and like I have to get in this zone where I just am doing it almost out of muscle memory, and I'm not going off adrenaline, I'm not going off of any
Yeah.
feelings. It's just this like I've ingrained it so much that I just kind of let it flow and it helps me dial back.
Oh, I
And
love that. That's so good.
so it's learning. I mean, I feel like Tiger talks about this a good bit, or like a lot of athletes about choosing like peaking. Like he's like, I'm trying to peak for Augusta or whatever. So during the set, that's like the big songs. It's like, okay, this one, it's a fan favorite, but it's not like we're in LA and the
Yeah.
entire radio community's there and our whole
Yeah.
label is there and these are the singles that they just dumped all this money into for all this stuff, so they want to see us nail it. It's like finding when to kind of really get after it
I
and
got it.
learning
Yeah.
how to control that energy. But
Oh, it's so
yeah,
good.
it's just riding out that wave in the right way. So I will legitimately make sure for certain songs that I am pulled back. I am not thinking about it. I'm just doing muscle memory and trying to just focus on the environment and like read the crowd and see, does the crowd need a break? Like do I need to like slow them down for a little bit so that I can get them slamming for this song? And I mean and that's just years of doing it over and over, but yeah, just kind of like finding when to really send it during the set and just having literal ways to force myself to dial it back.
Yeah,
And whether
man.
that's making sure I'm going and getting water during these parts, just taking a moment to like breathe instead of just yelling at the crowd for 30 seconds between a song. Uh, yeah, things like that.
I love hearing you talk about it. Again, I don't think we've ever talked about that specific aspect. That's fun.
Yeah.
Give it, and again, I know there's probably five good answers to this, but just give us one example of a way after shows. It could be after a tour. How are you evaluating performance and actually trying to just continually, like I say in all my stuff, forever learning? How are you trying to continue to see learning and improvement happen in the way you evaluate? What's happening with you? I know you also do some evaluation for the band as a whole. You'll go back and listen to mixes and find out where everybody's at and what you're hearing. But just give
Yeah.
us one example that comes to mind about how evaluation works for your improvement?
Yeah. A a big thing is actually really taking time to like breathe and sit on it right after the set. Um, if I have what I think is a rough show and I walk off stage and I'm heated and I start trying to evaluate it, then it's not going to be rational and
Yeah.
it's not going to be realistic. I'm going to be overanalyzing, picking things apart, not focusing at all on all the positives I had for that show, just focusing on what I think I shanked this one note that was really important, or whatever. Um, so when I get off stage, I mean, if we're really in it and we have a lot of shows in a row, I try and walk off and be dead silent for an hour and just like drink some waters, maybe
So
like
smart. Yep.
make like a whiskey or something and just like completely calm down before I do any sort of evaluating. And then usually what happens is, and thankfully we have a big crew who works for us every night. So I'll ask them, I'll ask the sound guy, I'll ask our tour manager, our techs, you know, I thought I was way off tonight. What did you think? Because you've also seen this so many times.
Yeah. Trusted
Like,
voices. Yep. Trusted
right.
voices.
Like,
Yep.
what did you really think was good and bad? And more times than not, they're like, it was stuff that you're just in your head about. Like, nobody in the crowd
Yeah.
is thinking about that or is noticing the things you notice because you are so ingrained in this that you'll notice if you're a few cents off on a note. Crowd has no idea. They're having this experience that's like this huge moment. And that also helps me kind of like get back to, square one of remembering like my priorities and what's important in a show. If I'm
Good.
taking so much time over analyzing myself,
Yeah.
then it's going to show and I'm going to put on a worse
Yeah.
performance instead of just trusting that I know what I'm doing. We're having a good time. I'm a little off here and there. Who isn't? But everybody else is enjoying it, and this is a group effort, and I got to make sure that I'm not bringing down the show, and I'm not bringing down our band and crew because I'm being way too hard on myself.
Yeah.
So, like,
So good.
making sure you're evaluating with a clear head is paramount. That is
Oh.
absolutely paramount.
Yeah, so good and so dangerous, right? And
Oh yeah,
hard, hard lesson, school of hard knocks on that one. And I just want to pause and say to all my golfing clients and my golfing coach friends and my golfing friends, the man just said he shanks notes on the stage. So I
oh
just want
yeah. It is a dead shank. I mean, it's literally like you just blasted one 40 feet to the right. I mean, when
to,
you miss it, and everybody sees it and notices.
if anybody ever doubts when I tell them how deep you are into golf when you're not on tour, that just proved it right there. He's got it built into
Yeah,
the vocabulary.
you better
All
believe.
right. So, Caleb, this was awesome, man. I love it. Love it. Love it. I could continue talking about this stuff. You and I are probably just going to sit around and have this conversation even
I'm
deeper
sure.
as we
Yeah,
go. But I want to take you into something I'm doing with everybody I do interviews with. I call it the back nine. And, the Masters doesn't start till the back nine on Sunday. So the
yeah.
interview really starts about right now.
All
And
right.
I've got 9 questions. You have no idea what I'm going to ask. And I
Not a
have
clue.
I have geared the 9 questions specifically to you. You get asked this stuff all the time. You do Instagram lives and people send questions in. I don't think most of these questions anybody has ever asked you. I'll be surprised.
All
They
right.
might. So, and I've mixed in a few golf questions
Now we're
with
talking.
career questions like you get asked more often about your career. So, we're just going to start off. Question number one. This is kind of just first rapid response kind of stuff. So, first one is a golf question.
Okay.
Current favorite club in your bag and why?
Um, my hybrid, which I actually have not loved for a long time.
I'm shocked. Come on now, give me
Yeah.
one reason why.
I've just realized that it is so versatile. It is so much easier. Like I get myself out of so many situations, and once I got past the nerves about that club, which I don't know why I had, and just started trusting it, and not trying to manipulate my swing to accommodate it or anything like that. Uh, it has just got me out of so many sticky situations. And yeah, I've been absolutely loving it.
I
So that
love it.
honestly, that's my favorite club in the bag right now.
I would have picked about 8 different answers before I'd have picked that one.
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
I'd have lost the house on that question right there. All right. Question number 2. Have you ever said something to a crowd from the stage, and after you said it, you thought to yourself, geez, what in the world did I say that for?
Constantly, absolutely all the time. Will when we call it getting cracked on tour, is when you just kind of like break mentally after you've been out for so long. Do it because I mean, it does kind of get like Groundhog Day, where you're just doing
Yeah.
the same exact thing every single night. So we get to this point where we just try and make each other laugh, and like honestly try and make each other mess up because we're trying to make each other laugh so hard, which we rarely ever do. And we don't, I mean, we don't do it if it's, a really big deal, but
Yeah,
little,
sure.
little things. But my goodness, I can't think of them specifically because they're so off the cuff, but I'll just yell like random inside jokes during parts of songs where I know people will hear it and be like, wait, what was that? But like not really know. Yeah. Oh man.
That's good. I
Every
love it.
single show almost.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. What in the world
'Cause
did I
you,
say that for?
yeah, because you just got to keep it fun at some point. And then, but there are also times where I've like, funny story, really quick. But we were playing in at this festival in front of about probably 30,000 people, a massive, massive festival. Went out, nailed the first song, dead quiet on stage. I'm walking up. We have these like rise. I have like a platform that I stand on up front, and I go like, "How are we doing?" And just kick it, falls flat on my face, dead silence. Mike smacks on the ground, 30,000 people. And yeah, I don't remember what I said, but we just kind of like laughed it off, and it was great. But yeah, I've
You had,
definitely,
you had the full-on body shank on that one, right?
yeah, I just, you hate to see it. You hate to see that one,
hate,
Bob.
hate to
Hate to
see
see
it.
it.
It's gonna happen, but hate to see it. All right. All right. Third question. What is it about golf? What's one thing I know you could talk about this for an hour, so I'll just,
Yes.
one thing about golf that makes you so obsessed with it when you're home from touring. What's the offset of golf from touring that works for you?
It is just so polar opposite to being in a touring environment. On tour, we're in buses and venues, and we are always packed, no free space, no alone time, which is great and it's really fun. But golf, I love just being out, and literally the only thing on my mind is the next shot. I'm not thinking about work. I'm not thinking about music. I'm thinking about nothing but the game. And it's probably the only thing in my life that truly like completely frees me up from all of the work side of my life.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm glad you're so into it. Obviously, it's fun because you and I just obsess on it together with Luke
Yeah.
all the time. So, all right, number 4, least favorite thing about a long tour that most fans likely wouldn't really think about.
Oh, that's a great question. Um, the I don't know. Give me a second here. That's a good question that most fans don't really think about. The food, honestly, like, so I love cooking. Not
Yeah,
being able to cook is very frustrating
that's
sometimes.
a good answer. Wow.
Uh, like and when we're on tour, I am really focused on my diet. It is really important. And a lot of the time I'll just end up ordering like sushi or something for days and days in a row because I don't, there's only fast food or there's only
Yep.
whatever. And yeah, that not being able to cook and like control what I'm eating out there is a huge bummer.
I don't think I would have thought of that one either, but now that you say it, I'm like, well, of course, because I know what cooking means to you when you're home and how much fun you have with it.
Yeah.
So no, number 5, and again, this will be the first thing that comes to mind because you could have several of these answers to this question. This will be a golf one, so here we go. Most memorable golf shot you've hit so far in your life since you've been obsessed with golf. So last 5 years, most memorable shot. Where was it, and what was it?
Chip and eagle at Chapel Hill. I was playing with Luke, and I had a really good round going. I think that was when I shot 76, which was
Yeah, I
a
remember that.
really, really big moment for me. I shot 79 like 3 or 4 times, and I was playing really well. Par five, uh, good drive, hit four iron. What was it? No, good drive, and then I think 3 wood, short right, probably 30-yard chip, and I'd never made an eagle before, and that's still the only eagle I have ever put on a card, actually.
Hard, man.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it was just literally perfect. I saw the chip, saw the read, and just absolutely executed. And I mean, it dripped in just like it was a putt.
Love
That
it.
was perfect speed. That was the best shot, most clutch shot, and best feeling shot, most memorable for sure.
Oh, I wish I would have been there. Was not there.
It
Wish I
was a
would have been there.
yeah, it was a great time.
Number six, what's a ritual or the closest thing to a ritual? This could almost venture into superstition, like kind of, you know, what's a
Yeah,
ritual that you have to do before a big show? Could be like right before you go on stage, could be an hour before, but something that you have to do or you just can't really feel ready. You're just not ready until you do whatever it is.
yeah. At this point, I have like a little bandana ritual. So I like started wearing a bandana on stage because on one Warp Tour in 2017, we were in Florida. It was insanely hot, and our tour manager at the time was like, people were giving out bandanas, some table, and he had one, and he would dip it into like an ice bucket and then put it on his head and go work. And I was like, man, that's a great idea. So I just did that before the show, and had a really good show. And I'm oddly superstitious about like clothes and certain things on stage. And yeah, so I did that and haven't played a show without it since. Or when I have to like find whatever the coldest water I can possibly get my hands on, I like soak it in a cold sink or whatever about 5-10 minutes before we go on stage. And like that's the okay business. Let's
That's
go.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. All right, back number seven, back to a golf question. Choose three people for a dream foursome. Can't be me and Luke, so you got to go outside of the fam. So three people that you would play a dream foursome round of golf with. Could be golfers, could
yeah.
be non-golfers that you get to spend 5 hours with on a golf course. Let's just limit it down to people who are currently still alive.
Okay. I mean, I'm just gonna go with three golfers because if I had any chance to be on a golf course with three people, um, I mean, obviously the goat. I mean, just to be able to watch Tiger play at close range and
Wow.
just see what his ball flight and all that looks like would be absolutely phenomenal. Um, Jack probably just
Oh
because I
yeah.
think I think he would just be just such a great dude to be on a golf course with. He just seems like such an amazing guy, and just to watch him do, just to watch him putt would be like literally a absolute dream. One more. Oh man, this is such a tough one for the last one. I pr- I'd probably go with Tommy Fleetwood because
I
that
was
dude,
gonna say you got to
Tommy
pick Tommy.
Fleetwood is he just seems like a really funny dude and like would just be really casual and normal on the golf course, but that dude can go so violently low when he gets it turned on. I think it'd be a really fun dude to play around
Wow.
with.
You imagine. All right. Question number eight. Question you get asked in almost every interview that you're super tired of answering and you're super glad that I didn't ask you today.
Um, oh man, it depends on the era, but when we first started out, where did your band name come from, or why do you have your band name Beartooth? And everybody expects some
Yeah.
story or that it means something and it's this whole big deal. Literally, our old bass player, still one of my great friends, Nick Reed, grew up on Beartooth Court.
Yep.
We put the words together. That was the name of the band. Easy to find on Google. Sounded pretty cool. Literally, that's it. No
Yep.
story beyond that.
That's exactly right.
I've just
Shout out Nick. Shout out Nick.
out
Love,
Nick.
love
you,
Nick
buddy.
and the fam.
Yep.
That's awesome. All right, number 9. If someone in your touring family were to say a word or a phrase that everybody else who's part of the touring gang would know that person was imitating you, making fun of you, sounding like Caleb, what word or phrase are they likely to say? What are you associated with amongst the Beartooth gang behind the curtain?
That's a great question. I feel like if anybody has ever tries to give me like do an impersonation, it's always that is nuts. I feel like that's like the phrase, that's like the go-to. Or bonkers.
That's a
The
great
big
answer.
bonkers.
Since all your touring gang are just extended Shomo family members, I may have to
Yeah.
like poll them all, find out if they think you were right.
Oh yeah, I would be curious to hear what they have to say about that. That's an incredible question. Fantastic question.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, man. Well, this was so much fun. Again, it's just, talking to my son's just always one of my favorite things in the world. Talking to you about topics that I'm like deep into and trying to help other people figure out. This is just a blast, son. Thank you so much for doing this. And
Absolutely. Anytime. My pleasure.
Can't wait to talk soon, man. Thanks. Love you.
Yeah. Love you too, Dad.